Ladies and gentlemen, important information. Two quick things. We have a new district staff member with us today, so I'd ask Robin Jones to stand so everybody can see Robin. She's joining us starting today. She's in Cindy Ambrose's department, and I'd like to give a shout out to none of these people are in the room. Jeff Baroe and his folks for all that they have done. We have over 139 buildings, millions and millions of square feet, over 16,000 acres that have to be taken care of, and they got the buildings up and open and for the most part fully functional today with some exceptions. But our bus drivers went out and ran the routes today, and we're not going to be able to run schools tomorrow for kids. So we'll have another teacher work day tomorrow, and staff will report at 10 a.m. Erica and Michael Reichenbach are getting that announcement right now. Thank you.
Dr. Postaway, but I have been talking to some of the parents in my neighborhood, and I would strongly suggest that you put some adults in here because I suspect there's going to be a lot of children dropped off at 75 Calhoun at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Parents are done.
This is free Wi-Fi. Free Wi-Fi and snacks.
Parents are flipping out. Yeah, make sure it's because of the routes.
They're doing that, and
I understand. I just want, because parents scream as soon as they get the message.
we try to get Kaleidoscope to open today. They may be able to open tomorrow, but they can't take children who aren't normally part of Kaleidoscope, or else they'll get overloaded.
Right.
So I'm sorry. If we could run it safely, we would. There's no one in America who hates to cancel school worse than our staff does. So.
All right.
And it's still bad out there. So
It is. I think that's the thing we need to remember. It is still bad out there.
It's really bad to put kids on it.
All right. So, SEC, Priscilla, are you ready to? You ready to jump in and start talking about some calendars?
It's the academic calendar options.
Academic calendar options.
Madam Chair of SEC, before we begin, may I ask a question? Can we ever legally build more than 3 makeup days into the school calendar? Because we're getting, this happens every other year. Is there a way we can build more makeup days or into a calendar? State law let that happen?
But I think that you can. I don't think there's anything saying that you cannot.
Add an hour or two every day to the thing.
I was interested to read, sorry, I'm talking, you read in one of the articles over the weekend that a couple of school districts had school on Saturday, which I'm not proposing.
We used to do that in Vermont. You'd have to have, as long as it went past noon or something, then it counted as.
I even heard some school districts up north where they have a lot more inclement weather days have added additional hours on the school day just to extend the day to make sure they get the seat time.
Because I think we might need to start realizing that given the cycle of weather with the hurricanes and stuff, we're always up against 3 days. Okay. Man, a guy called me from Colorado upset. I'm like, seriously? Please enjoy your vacation. You can be mad at me when you get back in January.
Okay, so now we find just.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I was just going to say, I've been told by the Charleston legislative delegation that they're going to request forgiveness of these days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now move to approve the calendar options going forward.
Second.
Can we have can I ask one question?
No, okay.
We can make the motion, then we have discussion. Right. Second, then we discuss it.
Okay. Is there any
question.
discussion?
So this year's calendar, we ended this the first semester before the Christmas holidays, which I thought was really cool, but it looks like these do not, and why can't we do that this year? Or next
So
year?
the high school contingent of teachers tried their best.
Oh,
That
okay.
was their main priority. There just aren't enough days. The state law says we can't start until the 3rd Monday.
That's good.
And when you count the days available, including the fact that we need to have election day off next year to be able to do the schools, you'll see that there's not enough days there to put you at a place where you don't jeopardize the credit eligibility of high school students who take quarter or semester classes. So Berkeley County, for instance, has finished their calendar for next year, and they did finish theirs, but they're not going to have election day off, and they literally do not have one day off the entire semester. And I'll tell you, from a teacher perspective, and I think from a student perspective, that's very difficult to do, to have no break, no teacher work day, no nothing. They also made their weather makeup days teacher work days, and as you saw, and I think the teacher stakeholders are thrilled the fact that you preserved their teacher work day, that we were able to continue to honor that. So they tried every way they possibly could, and they just couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, that's what I needed to understand.
And this year we're very close. I
Right.
mean, we're right there this time. And there was a concern that if we'd had more weather before, that we would be in a seat time issue.
Okay, I believe Reverend Collins.
Yes, any of these half days,
Yeah, the
On
ones that
several
say half
calendars, there
days.
are several half
I guess
days.
mine's playing trick, so I'm trying to spot it. Call it a half day ones.
It's black and white, so where's the
The
say
early
half day
release-
next to it?
The early release are coded in orange.
Maybe I'm
Ours don't have color.
They don't have color. Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
look at this one, look at these. These
All
are
right,
the
so
ones
which
that you package.
Oh, that's what that was in mine.
Ours is black and white, ladies, just
But they say half day
we're
next to
sorry.
it.
Okay. Sorry, I have
Okay.
color.
So,
Apologize.
okay.
So do you want just the half days, or do you want half days and early release days, and which
Yeah,
option?
yeah, both.
Okay.
I'm gonna speak for myself as a
Can I
parent.
clarify just one thing? This is just for us to move these three forward for the community and to give feedback on. We're
Right,
not
okay.
approving one or the other.
But thank you for understanding. My concern is,
I think that
though I have kids in school myself, and sometimes we take them to school,
exception of that
they
one.
make it at 7:30, and 10 o'clock is time to come back home. And I said to myself, what's the point of having kids go to school in the morning and come back in the morning? Seems like you could find ways to get your, have the whole days, instead of having 2 half days, or half day and an early dismissal day. Why not find a way just to have a whole day somewhere else instead of, that's really inconvenience on parents. To have to take a child to school, take 3 of the kids to school that morning and come back that morning and take them home again and then find a babysitter or something like that. So I'm just wondering why do we even bother to have days at all or partial days? Some of the kids tell me that those early release days, they're doing very little work. There's very little instruction taking place. And so I'm just wondering, what are we doing?
So I'll speak to the early release days from a professional development viewpoint. We, unlike other counties around us, we don't have a consistent laid-in or early release dedicated for professional development. We have a neighboring district that does it every other Wednesday. We don't do that. So we only have 3 early release days on the calendar, and they are school-based professional development time, and it's the only time we have during school, except on the one dedicated day, for teachers to do any sort of collaboration, any sort of professional growth. So we really limited those to just 3. The half days are at the end of the year, the last days around exams for high school, for instance. And this year, because the winter break is going to be so late up against Christmas, I mean, if that's the holiday you celebrate, then we had it be on that Friday. With the number of days we need, that was a concession to say, because half days count toward our 180, and so we could make a full day on that Friday, but I think for morale issues was really the reason that we did a half day on that day.
I understand.
Those are the only half days we have are the ones at the end of the year, and that one right there at the winter break.
Your partial days and your half days, I think when you guys maybe looking at it with teachers and staff in mind, but I'm asking y'all to consider the whole picture of the parents and the students as well, how it affects everybody.
So
I'd much rather see a full day, that the kids are either in school or out of school. But I'm only one voice, but I speak for a lot of parents also. They much rather the full day, either in school or out of school.
can we get an idea of how many early release days are on this calendar? Because I really did count only 3.
That's it, there's
And,
3.
and so we could, and if we were to
Plus
take,
half days.
right, that's what I was asking. Is that the total number of days you don't have a full school day planned?
6. 3 half and 3 early release.
And what's the difference between half and early release?
2 hours.
Huh?
2 hours.
And But to Reverend Collins's question, you've got 6 days in which parents are going to take kids to school and they're going to come home early. Why? You said for the half day, but what's an early release? What's the?
That's the professional development time. And
So
it's
there's
the
only-
only we have built in is those 3.
So we have 3. If we don't send the kids home, we don't get to allow the teachers time to dedicate to their craft.
Correct.
Because other school districts do it every other Wednesday, which would not be what you want, so.
Not every, I wouldn't say every other Wednesday, but something works out.
I have a different question, because every district I've ever worked in, it was once a month. So in your dreams, how many professional development days do you think our teachers need in an ideal world?
In an ideal
In
world.
an ideal world.
It would be more than we have now.
Would once a month?
Right, and we do, it's basically once a month on our full months. So in a month like December, for instance, we don't have one because it's already shortened.
Right.
And we don't have one in,
Probably August, right?
February
around
is
whenever
short.
spring break is. We don't tend to
Well,
have
in February,
one.
there's a full PD day.
And,
Yeah.
and how many,
That's a
'cause
full.
this district runs very differently from the others I've worked in. How many days of professional development before school starts?
You're only allowed to have, you have 2.
2?
There's 5 days. 2 are for the opening of school, so those sort of things where you have your whole faculty together and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But we put 2 full.
They were only allowed.
2 full PD days, and then the third, the state mandates is the one in February. It mandates 3
So this is all
PD
state
days.
mandated?
They were only allowed.
Okay.
All the calendars are built around the state regulations.
All right.
So if,
Is there a
Okay,
motion
so that's
to
my
table?
question.
Yes, there
Did you
is.
have a question?
I did.
I had a comment.
So,
All right, wait a minute, oh, Michael, and then.
Okay.
Priscilla asked a question about, in an ideal world, how much professional development you think our teachers need. I'm a little different with my question and asked, based on the outcomes that we want to achieve, do we need more professional development days to do that? If that answer is yes, then why isn't that reflective in the calendar?
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
I don't know if that's on.
We can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got you.
All right. I think that is a really important point. One of the things we'll be bringing forward, not so much in regards to the calendar, but we're going to be talking to you about structures for professional learning. And it'll be our goal to do job-embedded professional learning. And ideally, what we'd like to see as a team, we'd like to see schools get funding for professional learning they could do on site and make it job-embedded, and that they could perhaps release teachers during the day. Some school districts will bring in subs, and for blocks of time, maybe a half day or just a couple hours, the kids are still in school, but those teachers are released and allowed to do some collaborative work. So that's part of the conversation that we hope to have with you in the upcoming months. It's not so much a calendar, but it is a resource.
And when are you proposing something like that would start? If
So-
you said schools themselves would work on their own funding, right?
So what we would like to do is to talk to the board about our current data, where we are, where we're going to do that in just a few minutes, get started on that work, and you'll get additional information in the upcoming weeks and in next month's Committee of the Whole meeting. We have short-term plans, we have long-term plans. We are listening to you, we are hearing what you say, we are taking it to heart, and so we have some strategies that we're scrambling to put in place. So I'll be prepared to talk about that in upcoming meetings.
so I'm sorry.
And then you.
So I do like that concept, Ms. Ambrose, as far as when you talk about the embedment, as far as these PDs being done while school are in session and bringing in subs. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that ideally, if you look at the experts on professional learning, yes, PD is job embedded, it occurs on site, and schools receive funding and they can bring in subs, but they also can support teachers in attending local and state conferences, and they have a lot of other strategies that they can put in place for professional learning.
Okay, just adding to that, would you be safe to say that possibility that there'll be some schools that will have more PDs than others based on data?
Based on
Well,
outcomes?
currently, we don't have that structure in place, but I have worked in systems and I've seen other systems that take a per pupil amount They take a base allocation and a per pupil amount, and schools get differentiated dollars based on the number of students, maybe some differentiation based on the students' challenges that they serve. And they have that PD, they write a PD plan, they submit that plan's aligned to the goals that Mr. Miller's asked us to focus on today, we're going to be talking about. And that's all a part of the structures and processes you put in place for continuous improvement.
Chris, sorry.
All right, so I'm
I
gonna
thought you told me I
piggyback.
was next, I'm sorry.
All right, I'm gonna piggyback on those two comments. I do think that I love the idea of having more teacher development work days. With all due respect to some of my fellow board members, I don't think butts and seats is all we need to be looking at, because there are different situations, and maybe we do need to tailor it based on which school we're looking at. For example, my kids go to a school and they take the AP exams and there's nothing to do for the next 3 weeks. They're just sitting around, they've already finished their class. And then I was thinking about my wife who teaches over at College Charleston. They start their school like a month after us and they finish it a month before us. I mean, that's when their exams are in April. So the idea that you just have to have the hours, and I'd rather us teach smarter and use that time to develop and make sure that our teachers have all the skill sets they need to do their job as well as they possibly can, versus just having a butt in a seat, so to speak.
So I think, and if the board wants this or if the staff wants to do it, because I hesitate to say this is what y'all should do when it's not a board action. But Michael asked a very good question, because the question he asked assumes that we're making this decision. And I think it would be good, because we need to understand that every single decision we make is going to negatively affect something. This is an imperfect world. It's a fallen world. It's almost impossible. So we have to own it. For example, if you're saying, and here's one of the reasons, how many of our teachers would continue working in our district if we made all teachers work 200-day contracts when they only had to work 190-day contracts elsewhere? You want 10 more days of professional development? Make your contracts 10 days longer. If you want, well, but that's what I'm saying. We need to see what the parameters look like. Chris says, we want to see them teach smarter with less time. I'm not sure that while it's a good theory, our state law still requires 180 days. Yeah. So while you think that's better, and I think that's better, that's not on the table as one of our choices. So maybe you guys could put together, just for the calendar, for some of the conversations that have come up, how many professional development days do you think we need? And why aren't you doing it? Budget, law, start date. What would it look like if you wanted to do it? We'd have to increase our budget or whatever. So I think that'd be a great place for us to start looking.
It can be done within the 180 days.
But it sounds like Cindy Ambrose already they have a plan that they're working on to come back to us. I just don't want to ask them to do something else. Can we look at what they're
I just don't want to leave it out here saying, I don't want to be asking people like that, well, if you think we need more professional development, why didn't you put it in there? There's a reason they didn't put it in there, and it's not because they didn't want to. I mean, and like I said, I don't know if we want to go through that work, but when we ask those kinds of open-ended questions, you think you need it, why didn't you do it?
So let's see what they're going to come back with.
Right. Of course it isn't because you thought we needed it and you just said, no, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, my comment was more, we're talking about making half days, full days. Yes.
Mr. Garrett is next.
Call the question.
Thank you. All right. Are we acting on this?
So we have a motion on the table to send all three of these forward.
Right, send all these forward so they can do, public input.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Or am I going?
I go through and do each one.
Okay. Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins? Yes. Oh, you have the wrong sign. Mr. Stobb?
Yes.
Ms. Darden?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and Kevin's isn't here right now.
So then it's you.
Oh, so, sorry, I'm
Thank
way
you.
out of practice.
That's okay.
Thank you very much. And we're moving on to...
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. See you Thursday.
I move to approve the waiving of 3 missed instructional days.
A second.
I'd like to amend that motion. Do we need to include tomorrow in that motion?
We can't waive tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, the
Haven't had it
state
yet.
Is there a law?
law that was passed in 2017 says that the first 3 must be made up. The second 3, the board may waiver, and then after that, we have to apply to the state.
A friendly amendment that we also apply to the state for the 4th or any more.
That's a great.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Second, I agree to that.
So are we doing 4?
Well, we're doing 3 and apply to the state for any beyond 4.
Any additional?
All right, Ms. Coates?
I have a question.
Oh, excuse me, yes.
So if it's possible, can the board get, again, what does this mean? What does it mean when you forgive days? How, you know, can we get something so we can tell our folks, this is the number of days kids were in school in 17, 18, you know, cost or any of those parameters? Because we think we just forgive days just means we don't make them make it up, but it has other things.
All right, let me, this is kind of what was shared with the board earlier. Yeah, so basically it's, all right, after the first 3 missed instructional days, the local board may, if it chooses so, waive up to 3 additional instructional days. We're asking that the CCS Board of Trustees waive the January 4th, 5th, and 8th missed instructional days, those 3 dates, for students. We will recommend employees whose contracts are equal to or less than 190 days also have these days waived. Those of us on the, this is coming obviously from the superintendent, those of us on the 12-month contract will need to take vacation or make up any days that we did not work on for January 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then they'll create some guidelines as to those who were contracted to work more than 190 days. I don't know if that makes it more confusing or less.
Do they get?
I think what you want to do is just set some simple parameters. If we miss 3 days, we're not making up 3 days, and we're applying to miss 1 day. How many school days were in the 17-18 school year? Because I can assure you, next November, we're not going to remember that when we're not happy with student achievement. So let's get it on the record of just what it actually means. I just think it's information for historical, and it's best if it's put into the motion so it's in the minutes forever.
So we had 180 days in the school year.
Are we down to 172?
So we've been 3 hurricane days and now 73.
So all I'm asking is that be in the action item so that it becomes part of the permanent public record when we vote to approve it on the 22nd. What is the dollar amount or any of those things, whatever the superintendent feels is necessary for what forgiving days means.
Well, Dorita, are students required to make up that word?
Good question.
So the question, there's a content that has to be covered.
Yeah, you have 3 less
And
days to
that
do.
content has to be covered.
Yeah.
And we talk about more professional development time for teachers. Teachers are contracted for 180 days. Anything beyond that, you have to pay for. So, no, the students don't make up the time, but teachers have to somehow figure out how to deliver the content.
And that's
It's
the
an
problem.
archaic aspect of an old agricultural calendar that is really beyond our control.
Okay, so the motion is we're approving the three days, January 4th, 5th, and 8th, and request that we apply to the state their waiver of any additional days for this storm,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that we put in writing what our total missed is, which right now will be 4 for this event and 3 for the hurricane.
Michael brought up a great question. How is the content kept on track, et cetera? Those are things that I think needs to be in the public record.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
yep, ready.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Perez? Reverend Collins?
Yes.
Stobbs?
Yes.
Ms. Darby?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
Yes. I guess I'm just fine.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And, oh dear.
Trey, here, you want?
I've never worked in a district where we did this, but I'll vote yes. We always made up our days. Okay, Lexile data, student achievement comparisons, and instructional strategies and supports. That's a mouthful.
Our conversations with you are causing us to think about processes and results and how we can get shifts in practice, but how we can get different outcomes. And we had hoped today to have for you data, but the Mother Nature's snowstorm kind of thwarted those plans. So we don't have those data for you today. We will have them this week ready for the board update. So we're going to be releasing data. Lexile data are reading levels. They're built off of SC Ready. It's the results of grades 3 through 8, the assessment that they took last spring. And what we've done is look at the bands for the Lexiles. We'll send a real detailed explanation. But we've looked at the percentages of students that are on track to be college and career ready. So we're running those data. We'll be releasing them to the principals. We're going to be working around them. We plan to share those data with you, and that's what we'd hope to have today. We didn't with the snowstorm. We weren't able to produce those reports.
How will that information be broken down? Will it be done by school, by grade?
It will be done by school and grade.
Okay.
The second piece of data we have for you is called a regression analysis, and it just simply means we've taken the poverty, looked at poverty in Charleston County School District and across the state. We've looked at the performance on SC Ready and end of course, well, we're going to do end of course assessments. We've not gotten that done yet, but we've plotted out where our students fall. And we can see how Charleston looks in comparison to the rest of the state. And there's a clear correlation between the poverty and performance across the state. But we see Charleston's trend line, we see the state trend line, and our goal is to find individuals doing better than we are with similar student populations and figuring out what we can learn from them. So those are two pieces of data that we plan to release. We're going to put them on the website and make them transparent. We believe in transparency, and I need to say this to you. You're going to be concerned by some of the things you see in those data, and we need to have fierce conversations, but fierce conversations does not mean you bludgeon the messengers and the people trying to do the work.
I'm sorry. That's sort of in Webster's. That's exactly what that means.
Well, I can show you what the author of Fierce Conversations will say. It is putting that on the table and confronting it and working collaboratively to try to figure out what you're going to do. So processes, results. Processes, results. You are talking to us, we are hearing you, we are listening, and that's what that visual says. And we're not going to just bring you those data without telling you what we're going to do about it. And I'm going to let Michelle talk about that just a bit.
Right. So as you can see, it says plan, do, study, and act. So not only are we going to present the data, then we're not just going to admire it. We're going to plan some action steps in addressing our student achievement data and also our schools. So working with our Title I schools, we're able to use some Title I funds to support initiatives such as coaching of our principals, our teachers, and our instructional coaches who are there, and how they can better serve our students academically in the classroom, and also themselves looking at data, coming to an analysis as to what should we be addressing. Here's the problem. What do we need to put in place to address those problems and those issues? So that PD that we're going to come back with a plan, of course. We are in conversations, but we're looking to launch this in the summer when our principals are free out of the classroom. But we're also going to begin with the embedding it in the classrooms with the teachers and the principals at the schools, and then full launch into the summer months as well. And I should have started there first in January in the classrooms and then into the summer months.
So you'll get the data this week in your board update with detailed information. We plan to come back in February and work around the data with you and have some conversation. We also plan to work with principals this week. We feel a sense of urgency. It is high priority on our list of work.
Yeah. Focusing on literacy.
Go ahead.
I had a conversation over the Christmas break with one of my clients who's a scientist, and we oftentimes talk about education every time he comes in to get a haircut. And so I mentioned to him that within the conversation of education and children and student performance, that when we talk about the lack of performance or struggling students, educators oftentimes have equated poverty to low performance. And because of that line that educators have drawn, they're trying to, I think, identify solutions and strategies that will somehow impact those two things, poverty and performance. And so he said to me in medicine, he says, Michael, correlation does not necessarily mean causation. And so I said, well, explain. He said, well, just because a child or a student comes from a poverty background does not necessarily mean with 100% certainty that they would be a low-performing student.
Causation, right.
Okay.
He says there must be other variables in place that creates that. So when you started talking about you're going to bring back this data, the first thing my mind started thinking about was not just, and then Ms. Watson breezed on it also when she said that we're going to look at strategies from principals and teachers and how we deliver instruction, probably one school versus another school. So I'm really, really interested in what that looks like. More so than poverty and low performance, but really
Absolutely.
how are we looking at the number of high-performing teachers in that particular school of poverty children and compared to...
And I was so interested because when Dr. Ambrose when Ms. Ambrose was talking about that data, when it's presented, you will see that we have some actual Title I schools who are high performing. And that was kind of like, when she was doing like that, it was kind of, you'll be surprised to see that they are some. So what are they doing in the school? What are they doing in their delivery that we can capture and replicate or train and provide professional development in providing it in some of our lower performing schools.
Isn't that what we just learned about Mitchell Elementary School recently?
Well, yeah, they were showing growth.
And I just wanted to add, you're exactly right, and I need to share a personal story with you. My father was employed on the naval base here in Charleston. He was injured, and while he was injured, we barely had enough food coming in on the table. But that didn't mean that I couldn't learn. So I have to believe every day there are kids out there just like me who they're dependent upon us to give them the best we can give them so that they can be successful. So I agree with you.
Yes. Wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, so we're ready. This leads us right into that next part, which is the template for the principal board presentations. And Michelle, if you could stay here because you have so much to add, and I'll ask the executive directors and the directors in the room if they'd come up to the table. There's plenty of room, and I'd like for them to come up for this conversation. We thought about the request to have principals sort of give a state of the school address to the board. And in thinking about that, and I got your email this morning, Mr. Miller, I've printed it and I'm actually highlighting it because I think we can take what you have there and build out in this process. We're trying to think about processes. We're not talking just about a presentation to come speak to you. We're talking about processes for improvement. So what I have on the screen, the first over on the left-hand side is the Plan, Do, Study Act. And I'm putting it up there because it is based in business and industry. And it grew out of the efforts to improve the Japanese economy after World War II. And so what happened is an American went over to Japan and he worked with business and industry leaders and he took a beginning of this cycle, it was called something else at the time, and he built this out. And after he did that work, Japan's automobile industry suddenly became noticed around the world, and places like Ford started using Japanese parts in their cars. They had a high level of quality, and they did this process, this plan, this study what you're getting, plan, implement, study, and make adjustments as necessary. And I had that illustrated on one of those earlier slides, and you'll see it in just a moment, but it's rapid iteration, looking at what you're getting, making adjustments. What school districts across the country have tried to do is, whether they're using Lean, or whether they're using Six Sigma, or whether they're using Baldrige, they've tried to replicate that. But the Carnegie Foundation out of California, based at Stanford, has come up with this 6-step process that really is helpful to schools. It's probably one of the most helpful visuals, but it talks about see your systems. And I think the board does a really good job in Charleston of seeing the system. You know our strategic challenges, you know our advantages, you know where we need to go and improve. Second step, well, it's in that blue square. Embrace measurement. How are you progress monitoring? Just like in the Japanese automobile industry, how are you looking at quality and making adjustments? How are you progress monitoring every single student? How do you learn through discipline inquiry? What are your structures and processes you're putting in place? Do you have them defined? Do you know what it is you're supposed to be doing? How do you organize as networks? How do you be problem-centered? What are your 3 to 5 goals? And then how are you going to look at variability? How do you look at where you're getting really great results and where you're struggling? Because your goal, the reason we're plotting those schools across all schools, every elementary school in Charleston are plotted against elementary schools in the state, middle plotted against middle, high school plotted against high school. The reason we're doing that is so that we can see who's getting good results, better results, and try to replicate best practice. And that's what they did when they were building out these models in Japan. So what you see here is we've taken the concept that came out of the board. Instead of just thinking about a presentation, we've tried to think about a process, overall data analysis, establishing goals and strategies, and progress monitoring along the way. What assessments do we have to get rapid, quick data on students to see if what we're doing is working? And so that's really our goal. And what I have to share is this is going to be big, massive work. This really does shift the work of the people around this table. I've been having conversations with the team inside Learning Services about what it means to supervise principals and what you pay attention to. And it also shifts the role of that building principal. It's not just about how well you can manage your building, but it's how well you can build capacity with your teachers. How do you enable? How do you remove the roadblocks? How do you put learning up front and center? That's really what we're looking for in our principals going forward, and what we're going to coach for. That's what we're going to try to strive to coach for. So if you look at these slides, you can see the blueprint. We are going to dig inside the data, and Mr. Miller, that email you sent, we're building out a calendar of data you can look at the beginning of the year. What can you look at during the year? What do you look at the district level? What do you look at the school level? And then when we visit the schools, we're going to be having conversations around those data. So you did a lot of work for us. That's really quite helpful.
Imagine that.
That's really quite helpful. We had just had some conversations about building out a calendar that had all that in it, and you did a lot of that work. So that's really great. So I've printed that out. We'll be looking at it. We'll be figuring it out and building out how do we look at data all year long. Establishing the goals. What are the 3 to 5 things you can do as a building principal to really move your school forward? And we plan to really look at the data and know the data so that if you say you're working on XYZ, we agree that XYZ is what you really need to be working on. Strategies, how are you going to get that? And that's probably an area that we have the most work. We are looking at some work from across the United States on what strategies are schools putting in place to really try to tackle reading.
Is this going to morph itself into potentially having schools or school leaders, principals having some sense of autonomy when it comes to delivery of instruction and how they do it?
Some autonomy. However, what the literature pretty much says is that strong systems have a core curriculum.
And then you have
they've identified what it is they want students to know. It's a core. And then they've got differentiation of that curriculum for really high achieving students and for students who may be struggling. They have alternatives. So some autonomy, but we really need to think about being a school system rather than a loose grouping of schools. I mean, that's what I've heard the board say.
Yes.
All right, and then this is probably the most important part, the progress monitoring. To really make sure that we've got steps in place to monitor students' progress all along the way. Are we looking at map data at the individual student level? Are we looking at digital content data? Are we looking at it by grade level, by school, by grade level, by classroom, and by student? So we're working on building those structures out. This team Michelle is actually taking the data out of Stono Park. Do you want to say a little bit about that, Michelle?
Sure.
No, stop that.
I think they can hear me. I see this as this continuous improvement science as an opportunity to align and streamline our work. I think it's going to afford us the opportunity to do three things. To build capacity in terms of collaborative leadership. The process will encourage principals to work with teams and all stakeholders versus a principal in her office figuring out goals and strategies on her own. It'll also provide for transparency. The plans that we develop will be monitored, reviewed, and guided with district level support. They'll be monitored and supervised. And then it will also provide for systems. We're not doing work in isolation. We're not doing it hodgepodge. And so it'll provide a framework for how we do, what we do, making sure that it's systemic, it's a process, and that every school, every leader understands what the process is. Ultimately, producing results for children. And so I have done a rough draft that I'll be sharing with principals as they do their work based on Stono Park's data. And I think moving forward, it's going to be advantageous for schools, for principals, and for children most of all.
Yes.
I'm just going to ask a question. So is this, obviously, you inspect what you expect. Is this tied to principal evaluation?
Yes, it is. It will be.
And then also, is it somehow connected to teacher about that? So that I know that there have been points in the past 12 months where principals say, Roger, we got it, and teachers say, we didn't hear the first thing about that. We didn't know that was going to be expected. Yeah. So is it tied down to the classroom?
So we are, I really probably need to bring in here a grid of all the work we've got underway in learning services because they all fit together like gears. The targeted support that we're doing, going out into schools and giving feedback, and we can show you examples of where Dr. Williams isn't at the table, but he just recently shared with me where he's gone back to 2 middle schools and sat with them and gone over that feedback and took a team in there with him. So those targeted support meetings, we've identified an additional layer of schools. Now it's a total of 21 schools. We started with 12. We now have 21. Our goal is to do coaching. So we're restructuring staff. Starting when we came back from the holiday, we've got 2 staff members that will take 16 elementary schools. We've got staff members who will take middle schools, and we've got staff members who will be working at some identified high schools. So our goal is to get inside those schools and look for this. What data analysis did you do? What strategies do you have in place? How does your master schedule support learning? Are you analyzing your discipline data? What do your social and emotional curriculum look like in your efforts? So we're trying to do a really kind of comprehensive, systemic, systems kind of approach to all of this work. So yes.
But I think to get the yes that we want is a piece of this holding the supervisors accountable for delivering the message of the district to every corner. Michael, you and I talked about every corner of the district, and what we're talking about is that part of their job accountability for how they deliver it and how they make sure it's executed and how they follow up for those that they're in charge of. We've had situations where certain levels get the information, but then we have no way of knowing when the other people come back and say, well, we weren't told. It ended there. And so clearly, is there a mechanism to hold people accountable to make sure the teachers know this, understand it, and have the supports necessary to execute it?
So Michelle brought this with her, and I'm going to ask Kim Wilson to take it up and pass it around the horseshoe. We'll be bringing this back, and we've got it prepared for the principal meeting this week. And at the top of Learning Services Strategic Priorities is answerability, accountability. And we call it answerability at the beginning because it's asking those questions and putting it out front, what you've got to tackle. What is it that you're really trying to work on and being transparent? So yes, the other thing is we would like for principals, at least in the schools we've identified, to bring a teacher leader with them to the principal meeting. The principal meetings in the morning are really about shaping culture and work, and this Thursday we have an expert coming in on reading levels and how that you can take that information and make that actionable for improvement towards college and career. So he's going to be with us for an hour and a half for a presentation and a Q&A, and then we have him working with district staff in the afternoon. But it's not enough that he just works with teachers. So we would like for teachers to start bringing, we're going to have to find a bigger space. This space won't hold us. But we'd really like for the principal to come to the principal meeting and bring with him or her a teacher leader in their building, so that when they go back, they're going back together. And that way, we think it will eliminate some of the breakdown in communication. Because the principal's it's a really hard job. It really is the hardest job I've ever held. It was hard when I was a principal. I left some days thinking, I've got nothing to give anybody. Don't anybody get in my space. I remember telling my husband, I just got to have some space. I've had people all day long needing things from me. So that's a really tough job. And to think they can do it all by themselves is not really realistic. So we'd like to set up a coaching structure. We're going to be looking at every staff member inside Learning Services, making some adjustments, making some shifts in roles and titles, and we're going to be looking at school staff and what their roles are, and really try to restructure that to get at where we need to put our focus and energy and effort. So yes, ma'am, that's our goal.
I'd like to see something, I think some of the board would, that's what is the piece where you're going to the people you expect the information to be given to and watching how they execute it and to determine, rather than having someone go with you and believing that it's going to go to them, because we're going to get the phone calls of the I don't know. We need a level of comfort that this was clearly communicated ahead of time to all the right people.
And that is why I asked this team to be inside the conversation at Edisto that you just had, because I wanted them to hear that conversation firsthand and to hear your passion and your commitment and what's important to you.
Thank you.
And part of the principal evaluations we're doing, we have to visit our schools. And so part of the evaluation process is that we have support visits at the schools where we see them running a faculty meeting or see a team of teachers meeting based on information that is present. So we have to have that evidence in our evaluations of our principals as well. That's a new wrinkle for us this year.
So once you give us feedback and tell us you're ready, we will make sure we start lining principals up to come present, and we'll roll this process out. We're planning to talk about it on Thursday, and the information you sent, Mr. Miller, we're going to take that and try to embed it into a calendar of this is what we recommend you look at when. District work on data, school work on data.
Thank you.
Great, that's exciting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, about a minute, 48 seconds.
Keep going, Cindy.
Yeah, wait a minute.
You're a godsend. You were
Hey there.
How you doing? Oh, thank you.
In the handout that we were just given, there's some information about
All right, thanks.
Trident Technical College and Avid. Gordon?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Postlewaite, Board of Trustees. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm here this afternoon to introduce to you two new exciting programs coming to Charleston County School District starting this spring semester. I provided in my board agenda item packet, you'll see their names, Accuplacer Bootcamp and Opportunity Now. So what I'd like to first do is talk about what Accuplacer Bootcamp is about, because that kind of segues into the Opportunity Now program. So what is Accuplacer? Well, Accuplacer is a computer-based test that measures reading and writing and mathematics. And our students in Charleston County School District take that test. And what's the purpose of that test? Well, that test is used for several reasons. One is schools like Trident Technical College and other post-secondary universities determine the level of achievement and the level of performance of students to decide whether they're ready to take those upper level courses required at colleges. Yes. So the students have to achieve a minimum score on the Accuplacer test to begin enrollment and registration and participate in that coursework. Also, some youth apprenticeship programs and apprenticeship opportunities use the Accuplacer as a benchmark to determine whether the child has the knowledge and the skills and the abilities to begin the internship, apprenticeship type activities. Also, some schools use Accuplacer as a sort of intervention tool for remediation and to get kids up to speed. That's basically what Accuplacer is in a nutshell. What we want to do is to provide an Accuplacer Bootcamp for students at select high schools in Charleston County. And what that means is we want to test all the 10th graders and 11th graders at 3 high schools in Charleston County. That would be Stall High School, North Charleston, and Burke High School. We want to assess their level on the Accuplacer. Those students who do not meet those minimum requirements to begin enrollment, to take dual credit coursework, or to begin an apprenticeship program, or to take those upper level courses, we provide them with training, with intensive training from Trident Technical College, where the college will come to the school for, we believe, between 4 and 5 hours a week and work with those students on some of those academic skills in reading, writing, and mathematics. They'll also provide them with course material and also kind of encouragement and let's keep it up, and I want to see you here next week and you're making good progress, with the hopes that by the end of the spring semester we will then once again test those same students who were in that boot camp to determine, first of all, the program effectiveness, how well are we doing what we're supposed to be doing, and then at the same time get them to a level where they now meet those minimum requirements so that they can begin dual credit coursework, apprenticeships. It basically is a key that unlocks a lot of doors and a lot of pathways for our children. So this is a program that was presented by Trident Tech through the generosity of a Bank of America grant. So this is something that it's a great package. It's a win-win all the way around. And we want to start this immediately for the spring semester. Any questions on just the Accuplacer Bootcamp program?
Will this start in the second semester of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
The 17-18 school year.
And it'll be housed at each school, or will there be a?
It's an online system.
Well, the test is an online system, an online test, computer-based, but the program will be housed at each one of those 3 high schools, where Trident Technical College specialists will come to the school. That's my understanding, and they will work with those students for 4 to 5 hours a week.
Okay. So after the initial test, identify students who we think would be better served with the boot camp, then retested, right?
They will be retested at the end of the spring semester.
At the end of the boot camp, retested. And then you mentioned that the program was funded through a grant. What about the ability to sustain the boot camp training after the grant runs out? What's the duration of the grant? And is there any additional funding that will take the place of the grant when the grant sunsets, or will the district take on the cost?
I don't know if there's any funding or any continuation of that grant after the spring semester of 2018.
Oh, it's one semester grant?
Yes, this semester, yes, ma'am.
We want to see if it makes a difference. If it does, I mean, if you're going to go to a criterion-based evaluation system, one of the most important criteria we could select at the high school level is the percentage of your high school student body that can enter Trident Technical College without having to take remedial courses, right? So if it works, my recommendation would be to move some money that we're spending on other things over to support this. Because this is more important than gaining one more Carnegie unit in a system that doesn't parlay into something meaningful for kids after they're graduated from high school.
Yes, ma'am.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Is there any potential to maybe introduce something like this to other technical colleges or schools around the Tri-County, like let's say Mill and Mott or ECPI, and just seeing a bit, because I'm assuming Trident Tech went after this grant maybe with this particular in mind. Obviously, we have a pretty large system with a lot of students, so it kind of makes sense in Charleston County. But I would assume that if I were the president of Mill and Mott or ECPI, I would say, you know what, maybe we can go after a grant and maybe do something similar. So are you looking at introducing not just this, but just having conversations with the other technical schools around town to see if something like this could be beneficial on their end as well?
That's something I can explore.
Okay.
Thank you. Reverend Mack?
My question was answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. My next program I want to introduce to you is called Opportunity Now. And it's similar, it's a great segue from Accuplacer because this program was presented by Trident Technical College, and I provided a document for you, an attachment. It is a CNC Operator Bootcamp. So what is CNC? So that's computer numerical control. That's basically programming machines to do the work that humans do. Basically, what we want to do at Stall High School is invite a select group of students, those students who did not meet the minimum score on the Accuplacer exam. We want to invite them into a CNC Operator Bootcamp with Trident Technical College. So what is this CNC Operator Bootcamp? I provided a double-sided page, but in a nutshell, it's a one-week fast-track program for students to receive technical training on a high-skill, high-demand, and high-wage occupation going forward. Students would be transported to Trident Technical College. We are thinking in the morning first thing, where they'll receive training from their professional experts, their subject matter experts who are trained in those types of, in those career clusters. And then if they make it through the first year of coursework, they'll be invited back for a summer internship for 40 hours a week. At the culmination of this CNC Operator Bootcamp, they will sit for a national examination for metal workers. And if they earn that certificate, they can be immediately employed in the local economy, making above the median salary. And that's with a high school diploma or even a GED. This is a new initiative. It's exciting. It forms a relationship with Trident Technical College and Charleston County School District, but then also provides us as a system to see how we can forge these new types of strategies and avenues to prepare kids for post-secondary work.
Thank you.
Two things.
Yes, sir.
How many students can the CNC, will they be able to train? And the same question for the boot camp.
The CNC Operator Bootcamp would be 12 to 18 students.
Okay.
The Accuplacer Bootcamp, my understanding is that all 10th and 11th grade students will be tested. I'm not sure exactly how many will be in those remediation classes, but significantly more than the CNC Operator Camp at this time.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Excellent. Well, that was my 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You did it in 9.
Great news.
Solid. Can I bank the 6 minutes for my next presentation? Thank you. I'll be followed by the Avid presentation. For the Avid presentation, I'm going to bring up the director of Avid in Charleston County School District, Miss Melissa Kemp, and Maurice Cannon from the CTE department.
You don't want to say his title, what he did, his business.
Thank you. To my right is Miss Melissa Kemp. She's a CTE specialist in Charleston County School District, also the Avid District Director. To her right is Maurice Cannon, Director of CTE Program Support for Charleston County School District.
I know there's a lot of educators in the room, but CTE is?
Thank you. I apologize. CTE is Career and Technology Education.
Thank you.
It's the coursework that prepares students for the global economy upon graduation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Real quick, everyone hear me okay? Just as a reminder, AVID, this is our AVID update, stands for Advancement Via Individual Determination. There should be 2 handouts in your packet that has a snapshot of South Carolina, AVID snapshot, and then also a Path to Success, just an AVID snapshot that we wanted to reference. And then I'll talk more specifically about CCSD AVID data in just a moment. So real quick, just as a reminder, we currently have AVID in 6 schools. 5 of those schools are in their 2nd year implementation, and that is Baptist Hill Middle High School, Hot Gap Middle School, Morningside Middle School, Simmons Pinckney, and St. John's. And then Early College High School is in their 1st year implementation. And just as a reminder, St. John's High School is thankfully funded 1 more year under the EEDA grant. And then this year, we have over 2,000 students that are enrolled in these Avid classes among the 6 schools. Good news to share. This year, we thankfully were able to have around 4 teacher certified Avid points that were allocations that were provided to 4 of the 6 Avid schools. So the administrators were extremely happy about that because it increased the fidelity needed for the program implementation. So we had those Avid allocations. That was super helpful. And then also Mr. Cannon in November took 4 of the 6 Avid schools, including teachers and a couple of administrators, to Blythewood to visit a national demonstration school, Kelly Mill Middle School, which was great for the teachers to see. And then Early College High School plans to take a group in February to Horry County to see their school in action. So moving forward, where are we? On February 16th, here for our Professional Development Day, we are having an Avid workshop for all of our Avid schools. It's going to be held at St. John's High School. And it's going to be a chance for all of the Avid schools to come, the teachers to come, and actually some Avid schools outside of the region might also participate. And it's on designing instruction centered around WICR. WICR stands for Writing, Inquiry, Collaboration, Organization, and Reading, which is the foundation for Avid. Those are the strategies that are really built around that curriculum. And so that's going to be helping the teachers and also the students have that growth mindset and understanding how Avid works. We also, Mr. Cannon is working on a district Avid meeting with our Avid schools. There is a certification piece that involves collecting data. And that's the big piece that we're working on now from a district support standpoint and how we can best collect data to share with you that demonstrates the academic success of the Avid students. And that we hope at the next meeting that we can provide that data to you. The Avid support, the Avid Center is providing some additional support for us. We've asked them to come in and do some classroom observations to help some of our Avid teachers and how they can better their strategies. So they're going to be coming in soon. And then also they're going to be helping us with that certification and that data piece. Once again, Maurice is working with Mervyn Jenkins. He's our Avid contact, fantastic, to help us with that. And then there's also a college and career readiness part that we are working on, which is a huge piece of Avid. And then we'll have to start getting ready for the required Summer Institute training that happens in June, where all of the schools will go and they get further training on Avid implementation. We had hoped today in closure to have 2 star Avid champion students from Baptist Hill come, but due to the snowstorm, obviously, and the students being out today, they couldn't come. So Ms. Brown offered to come, and I said, no, don't worry about it. So we hope at the next meeting, when we do an Avid update, that these students can come, because that's what really shows the impact of what's working. So they could not be here. But I did just want to read this quick remark from Vanessa Brown at Baptist Hill, and she said, "We are engaging them in soft skills such as public speaking, proper greeting and study skills like Cornell note-taking and student-led study sessions. In addition to the impact Avid is having on our students, it is also helping to professionally develop our teachers in the latest best practices and instructional strategies." So just wanted to share that. Any questions?
So you're in middle schools and 1 high school. Are we planning to spread it to more high schools, extend it to more high schools?
There has been.
Does anyone have an answer to that question?
No. I don't have that answer. Obviously, that brings in a budget piece, but I do know there is interest from several other schools since now that it's starting to be implemented and other administrators are starting to see it.
Because I taught at a high school that had a really successful Avid program, and it was pretty astounding.
Yeah.
What's the fee for Avid per school? Is it different per school, or?
So every year it differs, but usually, not including the training fee, it's around, don't quote me on this, $3,800 for a membership fee.
Okay.
And then obviously they have to go to the training in the summertime, which is around $760 per teacher.
Thank you. Ms. Coates.
So when you talk about expanding this or rolling it out, how does this fit into other programs? For example, Stahl has one-to-one. I visited Stahl, and the students they do one-to-one. The students are in control of their own training pace. They maintain their own log of what they've accomplished. And so that sounds like what Avid is doing to a certain extent. So how does this blend in, or how, if we go to expand it or choose schools not to put it in, why? You know, I guess I need to know why you're doing this instead of rolling out one-to-one to every single school, and why you don't have this at every single school and you have other initiatives in high schools.
That was one of the first questions, actually, that several of the administrators asked. Nate Nelson at Simmons Pinckney. And what we found is a lot of them do overlap. For example, blended learning is a huge piece in Avid. Well, that's a huge initiative in the district. I think the foundation of Avid and how it's carried out, I mean, it touches on each piece that's already being done. I don't know if there's more.
It's a good description.
It isn't, sorry, question.
Reverend Collins is next.
Yeah, how do you measure the growth and success of your program? Do you have measurables?
Sure. So that's the piece that we're working on right now. Avid has some data requirements that we have to collect from the schools, and we're meeting with the different Avid schools coming up here in the next couple of weeks on how we exactly want to align that to make sure that it's consistent across each school, because every school currently is doing it a little differently. For example, St. John's has a cohort of math students that happen to be the Avid students, and there's really some growth there, and that's the piece that we want to bring back to you.
How old is Avid?
I'm sorry?
How old is Avid? How old is the program? How old is it?
So we are in our second year of implementation, but nationally it's been around for many years.
A long time. Dr. Bolsonaro.
But I would just, to address Mrs. Coates' question, I would say that the personalized learning is the what I'm going to do, and the Avid is the how. Personalized learning doesn't work unless the individual is willing to take responsibility, understands how to follow through, understands how to advocate for his or her own learning, speak up, ask questions, take initiative. So it's the two complement one another. When we say overlap, we mean if you move to a personalized learning and kids aren't able to be self-directed learners, personalized learning won't work for them.
And Avid is the concept that teaches those sorts of soft skills.
The responsibility.
Exactly, student-driven.
Isn't it Avid, I've just heard this described this way, I don't know that it's officially this, but it is a program to help kids who might, or coming from under-resourced homes or schools, or, you know, that is specifically to help them with some of those kind of issues.
You can help all kids, but it's certainly children who may come from homes where the adults in the home don't understand how to navigate the system.
Right.
So the child
Because they're
has
too
to-
busy working 3 jobs. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would phrase it as a specific structure that provides the teachers or the educators with the professional learning in order to effectively implement strategies that have been proven to be top-notch best practices and proven to also yield high results of students moving forward, leading to success upon graduation and thereafter.
And what I've seen actually in a school is some kids who didn't think they were going to go to college after being in Avid for 4 years realized their potential and ended up being very successful.
That's correct.
They don't take Avid, but they spent 4 years in an Avid culture
program
of learning
within the high school.
And it gave them the confidence and skills to say, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I don't know exactly how much time we have
Not
left,
all
but
children.
I would like to just add, during our visit to Kelly Middle School, one of the parent panelists, thank you, one panelist that was a parent of a student who had attended that middle school that we visited. Her child was now successfully beyond high school and in college. And the student, the mom spoke on behalf of the student expressing how valuable the strategies from Avid that she had learned in middle school carried her along the way and throughout college. And many of her college peers were interested in how did she approach studying, how did she approach organizing her, let's say, notes. For instance, as there's a specific note setting, taking protocol called Cornell Notes that student used to really help her along the way, that even her peers in college learned from, that she was able to reach back to middle school. And the school in and of itself is now an Avid school. So in every classroom, in every pocket of the school, they're implementing Avid strategies. And our team that we took from Charleston, they were very excited. Our team members were very excited to see the impact of Avid and the long-term outcomes.
Thank you.
Reverend Collins?
So in the school, how much time do you spend at each school per week? One school per week?
That's a good question. So Avid is usually, it's year-long, and it's embedded into the schedule. So they have an Avid class every day, and it should be year-long. In high school, they get a credit for it, an elective credit, and then in middle school, same thing. Well, they wouldn't get a credit, but they have it every day.
So all the schools have it every day for an hour?
The school's listed.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So, and just like your staff, how many people are in your staff that operate the program?
How many people are on the staff? So every school.
Or do you just teach Avid to our people? How does it work?
So some schools have that point. They now have an Avid elective teacher that teaches that curriculum. At the same time, there's other teachers that have gone to training in the school that also are teaching those same strategies, which is great. So not only the Avid students are getting it, but all the students in the school are getting it. But then there's also, let's say high school B, that might be an English teacher, but that also might have a section of Avid. And so they're it depends. Every school's different depending on their master schedule and the allocations that they have.
But what I'm really asking is your budget of $70,000. What does that pay for? Is that the personnel, is that material? What does $70,000 pay for?
The PO last year covered all of the membership fees, and then also the training that's required for the teachers to go to, and along with the resources the library set.
So your team is how many people that run Avid? Your team?
So we had 40, there's around 50, is that what you mean, from each school? There's around 50.
No, just from
CTE.
Employees.
Your employees, just Avid, never for Avid.
Got it. So it's myself and Mr. Cannon and Mr. Gordon. From a district support.
You mean from central district or from at each of the school sites?
No, from the people that coordinate Avid and run the program itself.
They're right there.
Right here.
Right here, right here.
Among other jobs.
Yes, it's one of our tasks and duties.
And I do need to share that the funding that supported the teachers going to the training is Title II, and we are watching to see what's going to happen with Title II funding. That's our primary pot of money for professional learning, Title II, and if we lose that, that's going to have a disastrous impact on the professional learning we can offer.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, really.
Thank
you so much.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Program update, early college, high school, right?
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. With a mic on. Okay. Hey, Vanessa. Hi there. Glad you're here. Oh, great. Ready? Okay.
All right. So just to give everybody some background, I have this lengthy purpose and overview here for you of what early college high school's mission is, but I think most simply stated, our mission is to take students who are at the end of their 8th grade year achieving in what we like to call the academic middle. And by the first semester of their 10th grade year, we have them ready to achieve and pass the Accuplacer and place in dual credit courses at Trident Tech. We have some really, really exciting celebrations from our first semester that I'd like to share with you. We've received 3 internal awards from CCSD, one in the area from the Department of Exceptional Children. Our teacher received that award. And the other 2 are in the area of digital learning. For November and December, we received awards for Alex, which is a math digital learning content platform. And in December, we received an award for use of No Red Ink, which is an English digital learning platform. The thing I think that I'm most proud of this semester is our end of course passage rates. Just to remind everybody, these are first semester freshmen who at the end of their 8th grade year.
He can't even stay in his seat back there.
What's that?
Mr. Gordon can't even stay in his seat. He's so excited.
He's twitching. Our Algebra 1 pass rate for our students was 88%. Biology 1 first semester freshman was 83%. Wow. And English 1 first semester freshman was 98%. These are our high school level end of course exams that every single student in the district takes. One of I have to brag a little bit, she's not here, I would have had her accompany me today, but one of our students whose home high school is actually North Charleston High School.
That's because where all the smart kids are.
Yeah, exactly. It's where I came from. She has 2 jobs after school, does not have an internet connection at home, and she earned a 100% on her English 1 end of course, which is just,
Quit
it's
saying
what we're
wow,
all about.
people. That's how we roll up there.
It's what we're all about.
This is wow stuff all about.
I'm also really proud of the culture that we're building. I had one student who had to have his Chromebook taken away for a lengthy period of time, and when he finally got his Chromebook back and walked into class, his classmates cheered for him. They got up out of their seats and cheered for him. There was no snickering, there was no jeering, there was no teasing. So I'm really proud of our culture. I send out weekly emails to parents. You'd be amazed at how much response I get from that. Just having the ability to click reply and ask a really quick question is wonderful. We've all got an open door policy. One of my students' parents' mom came in and she was crying and said her son didn't go to school last year. His absence rate was, he was considered definitely truant, and he's missed 2 days of school this year, and he was so nervous about that, and it was because he had a fever. So we're making, I think, a really big difference for kids, which is what it's about. We've got an active PTA and student council and an active Avid advisory board. Another point of pride, I have only processed 16 total discipline referrals this year.
Nice.
16. It's not all roses and sunshine, although most of it is. So we've got some opportunities for improvement. I think we learned a lot about the right fit this year for our students and for our teachers. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to beef up the interview process for kids. We're going to add a teacher recommendation component to our application process. And I'm going to craft questions differently for faculty and have current faculty members involved in hiring decisions for next year. Time was a big issue. We've already fixed this for next year, but we're going to adjust our schedule so that our students have the opportunity to take 2 Trident classes per day. Their schedule, their bell times, if you will, that's not what they call them, but it's what we call them. Their bell times didn't align with ours, so we've already made that fix. And I think Avid is a real opportunity for improvement. I'm proud of what we're doing with Avid, and I'm proud of where we are with it, but it has the potential, I think, to be the missing link for kids. When you're talking about taking that middle performing student and asking them to perform at a dual credit rate from 10th grade on, they really need those strategies. And I think another key component that didn't come up earlier is that connection to the person that is their Avid coordinator. At early college, they see that person in the morning for 15 minutes and then at the end of the day. And that connection to a person that checks up on them and keeps them grounded and on task is important. So, in talking about growth, I'd like for the board to be aware of some budgetary considerations that we do have as we expand our program. We do pay Trident Technical College a yearly rent. We will be paying our students' tuition and purchasing our students' textbooks. One of the things that I did not realize at the beginning of this journey is that college textbooks come with online software codes, and those need to be purchased each semester for each child. That was an aha moment for me that I want to make sure doesn't catch anybody off guard. In the next school year, 2018-19, we'll be furnishing 4 more classrooms and allowing the teachers in those classrooms to have an allowance for a startup classroom. After 2018-19, there'll be no more furnishing costs. At that point, our students will have matriculated into Trident classes, and at that point, Trident provides furniture for their classrooms. Technology will be fixed after 2021. We're going to expand our internet network to the new classrooms that we'll inherit next year. And we'll obviously require new teacher computers, docking stations, document cameras, and the like. We currently don't have any display that is able to be manipulated by our teachers, so we are in need of some sort of interactive display in all of our classrooms. And then, of course, student Chromebooks are a big piece of our program. Some of what we do is one-to-one, not all of what we do is one-to-one, but they'll also need access to that technology at home once they're in their college classes. After the 2020-2021 school year, that will be something that we'll be able to recycle. But until then, that will be a new cost each year.
Question.
Questions?
So the access code for the students now, is that in place, or we're talking?
We don't have any students enrolled in dual credit classes this year, so it's not an issue this year. But next year, I've laid out very specific information about the classes that our kids will be taking and what the cost of each textbook is.
And you know what that cost is?
Yes.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
So piggybacking on what he says, when we started this venture, because we know from what we're going to hear later is that our system, state, county revenue is not keeping up with what we spend on programs and pay in salaries as it grows. So we were given a outline of what it would look like when this was fully functional that involved the cost. Are you talking about new things that were not in that fully functional cost? Are we?
I haven't seen
We had an
that.
idea that 100 students was going to cost this much. When we got to 400, we'd be there. Are you preparing us to say we're going to go past that expectation?
I have not seen the original outline that you were given, but I would think that that would have been a part of the model.
Dr. Postaway, do you?
I'm sorry, what did you say? I couldn't hear
The
your
original
response.
outline that the board was given, I have not seen that, but I would think that tuition and books would have been part of the original outline.
I would imagine it would have been.
It was. So
Okay.
I haven't heard anything that would cause us to believe it will go beyond the original projection, but I don't know.
The only thing that would cause that to go beyond is the increasing tuition and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And cost
If they
of books.
raise the, if they
Tried
raise the
it.
tuition.
So the added rent is built into next year's budget when we saw this, the added, et cetera. The last question is, you said that there would be an addition of a teacher recommendation piece to the application, and including teachers in some hiring decisions. I want to make sure that adding the teacher recommended piece kind of raises bells to us when we have such an issue with magnet schools and partial magnets, and some you have to do this to get in and some you don't. This is a very pure program that is for first generation college potential students. Can we add the teacher recommendation and stay true and pure to the purpose of why we did the early college high school? I just want to make sure we don't, as we grow, we don't lose sight of that very important reason we started this journey.
So I think that we've been really focused on making sure that we hold true to our original goal. What we hope to garner as a faculty is, we lost 15 students very quickly at the beginning of the year, and I think it was a best fit kind of issue where they didn't realize necessarily that the workload was going to be as intense as it is. If you look at our EOCs, our kids took some pretty intense classes this semester for first-time freshmen. They didn't realize that they weren't going to have sort of the gymnasium or the cafeteria aspect of that traditional high school. And so we're looking to garner kind of more insight into the type of student as we accept them into our program. But it's really important, I think, to remember that the rubric as it stands now has, I think, 28 different components.
Right.
So a teacher recommendation would become one of 29.
Right. I just don't want us to get 5 years down the road refinancing this with 47 components.
Right.
We've got to be cognizant that one means you can't add one next year and still only have 29.
Right.
Thank you. We are now out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying within the time. So the potential consent item of
I make a motion that items 8A and 8B go to potential consent. They were both unanimously voted on in the meeting.
Okay. All those in favor, or should I do one of them?
You can do all those in favor.
Oh, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.